Hi, this is Michael Wojcik with a Rochester City Council update for March 17th, 2014, St. Patty's Day. The time now is actually 1:54 a.m. the following morning. As you might have guessed, we had a long meeting. Three things I'm going to talk to you about in this one, and the reason I'm doing this tonight is I've had a number of media inquiries via text and Twitter already, so I know you folks want this information, so I'm going to do my best to get it out to you. I'm going to talk about the Senior Center. Spoiler alert, it passed 6-1 with Snyder voting against it. Second thing is a preservation request that we had in front of us with regards to demolition regarding one of Gus's projects coming up. And third is a proposal that was brought forth by administration, which not only did I oppose, but made me pretty angry as well. So let's get into that. Senior Center approved 6-1 with Snyder voting against it. I raised a number of concerns about this on June 29th because shortly before that, out of nowhere, in some secret meetings that the public never had access to, we had a request for an additional $2.3 million and raised a lot of concerns in that meeting. And frankly, a lot of the concerns that I initially raised, I'm much more comfortable that they're being addressed with now. They were not being addressed with then. The concerns were appropriate at the time. In particular, there just had not been any citizen involvement. We actually told July 15th of 2013 by staff that they would involve our CUDE committee, which is our Committee on Urban Design and the Environment, throughout the process. But as it turned out, they never even, by the time this project came back to us and they were asking for an extra $2.3 million, we actually, CUDE had never even seen the project at that point. So because, I sounded the alarm about public involvement and, I'm not going to move $2.3 million in the dark of night without having the public a chance to weigh in. A lot of good things happened because of that. It went to the CUDE committee, it went to the Energy Commission. There was a great public open house that took place at the Senior Center and a lot of valuable feedback, and I hope now the staff also incorporates that feedback. But the key thing is that that step of engaging the public that had not taken place before and that frankly had been ignored, that has taken place. As I was coming into this meeting, I want to sit down and write down what are the things that are really important to me to make sure that this is a beneficial project for the community in the long run. And I came up with basically 4 items and varying levels of success, but we moved the needle on all of these things. First and foremost is this thing was an energy pig. There was a lot of talk about, oh, we did this improvement and we did that improvement. The bottom line was park staff, in their own words, on July 15th, 2013, referred to this facility as being very inefficient. The data also bears that out, comparing it to other benchmarks. As a result of the actions that we took tonight and the concern that I expressed after the June 29th meeting, we actually are going back and doing another energy survey, and we found funding mechanisms that's going to allow us to improve the energy on the facility. And so this was a huge concern for me. My own analysis, and I don't know if it's right, but quite frankly, it's the only one I've seen to date, says that if we can get to 20% better than the B3, which is very obtainable on this site, B3 is a statewide standard that we use, we could save the taxpayers $6.5 million in current dollars over the next 50 years. That has huge implications for how we operate this facility. So very heartened that that one got taken care of. My second concern, a little bit less results on this one, but just how do we plan for the future of the site? The architect came in and told us today that, the surface parking with the 170,000 square foot facility was the best they could do on the site. I think we can do better. I'm disappointed that we haven't taken an eye more towards the future, particularly since in May of 2013, senior administration told the city council that they would come forward with a plan with an urbanized use of the current facilities, and in addition, they would come forward with a plan of what was potential on the site in the future if the site were to become more transit oriented. That frankly never got done, and I'm not satisfied after the meeting today that we're really taking that one seriously. Third thing that I really wanted to make sure that we took into account was transit orientation. The bottom line is there's a lot of senior citizens that are going to be dependent on transit and getting to the senior center, and I want to make sure whether people are walking, biking, taking transit, or driving an automobile, they have safe access to this facility. I was not convinced that was the case before. Now we actually have transit orientation on Elton Hills Drives. That is a monumental win for the community. I hope to someday have bidirectional transit orientation on Broadway accessing the facility. We're not there yet. I hope that we can achieve that in the future. Um, Bottom line, raising the concerns about transit was incredibly beneficial, and we got substantial improvements as a result of that. Lastly was just the citizen involvement. And, in staff's own words, on July 15th, 2013, they told the city council that they would engage CUDE throughout the process. And quite frankly, come January 29th, 2014, CUDE was not even aware of the project. They had never been talked to. These are people that are instrumental in figuring out how we can engage the pedestrian environment, create a attractive building for pedestrians, bicycles, transit, figuring out what the highest and best use of the site is. These people were not even talked to because of some of the concerns I raised. Now they're involved in the process. Staff tells us they're going to be involved going forward. I continue to have a number of concerns. I continue to be very disappointed in administration how they handled this. I throw out a lot of complaints about the where this thing stood on January 29th, but I also throw out a lot of solutions or potential solutions as well. And I had to deal with a situation where administration was telling staff that do not do anything that I'm saying unless they are directed to by a majority of the city council, which is a very difficult position to be in. You would think that administration would be trying to solve these issues as well, trying to deliver what the parks staff had committed to back on July 15th and May of 2013, but that was not the case. This was, administration was not a friend of the public in this particular case, and that remains incredibly disappointing. 7 minutes in, second issue, preservation. We had the demo permits for the buildings on North Broadway, the current CJs, and this has been coming for a long time. We're losing a lot of history when we take those buildings down. Basically, two things came out of this. One, this project was kind of already in tentative planning stages back before I moved to Rochester in the late 90s. So it's a little bit late in the game to be playing these, a little bit late in the game to be trying to make some of these changes. We listened very intently to what some of the preservation folks had to say. The bottom line is that, it is my hope that the Schifolius family will preserve some of what they call these character-defining elements in the buildings and perhaps integrate them into their own building or use them in the future. But this is so late in the game, and they've spent millions of dollars in already designing a new facility on the site, and there's no guarantee that, if we want to try and save the facade, the floor levels would even line up where it worked with the facade. So I very much respect what the intent was of this. I hope that we can preserve some of the defining elements of these sites. At the same time, it's a little bit late in the game to try and do something to force some changes on the development. I do hope, however, based on this conversation, that some of the buildings, perhaps on 4th Street Southwest and South Broadway, hopefully, if we do some things with those buildings, we can at least take into consideration what was said last night and figure out how to perhaps preserve facades, preserve some of the historic elements of the buildings. I know we have some tremendous buildings that might be up for demolition in the relatively near future, and it would be great to preserve the historic character of some of those regions if we do nothing else. Lastly, something near and dear to my heart, and this kind of a little bit came out of nowhere, but I have to say I'm incredibly disappointed and frustrated where staff went on this. And back last November time frame, I was contacted by some organization dealing with issues of climate change, and they had brought forward a resolution that had been passed by a number of cities, I think including Minneapolis, St. Paul, and a number of dozens of cities around the country, basically saying that the EPA, you've been charged with putting some policies in place that deal with climate change, and would you as a city ask the EPA to do what they've already been given the power to do, and use the Clean Air Act to help protect our environment? Well, the issue is, regardless of where you stand on this particular issue, What administration told me late last year was that you should bring this to the different committees. So, me doing my role as a city councilman, I offered it to the Rochester Public Utilities Board, the